Did you know that at one point, enslaved workers on Caribbean sugar plantations had a life expectancy of under 7 years after arrival? 7 years. That's not a war statistic. That's the cost of the sweetness sitting in your kitchen right now. And the story of how sugar became ordinary is far darker than anyone taught you in school. Here's why this matters to you. Every sweet thing you've ever eaten rides on a system built centuries ago, one that reshaped economies, laws, and entire continents. This isn't just about candy. This is about how the modern world was engineered. Let me name the players. A new book, Unrefined: How Capitalism Reinvented Sugar, by David Singerman, pulls the curtain back. Empires, plantation owners, chemists, and millions of human beings caught in the machinery. But here's the strange part. The people who profited most weren't always the ones you'd expect. What comes next is the part that actually matters. So, let's rewind. For most of human history, sugar was a luxury, a rare spice, something wealthy Europeans locked away like jewels. If you had sugar on your table in the 1400s, you were flaunting real power. It was medicine, it was status, it was almost mythical. Then, everything changed. Europeans discovered that sugarcane grew beautifully in tropical colonies, the Caribbean, Brazil, and suddenly a luxury became an industry. Here's what that means for you. The sweetness you take for granted only became cheap because someone figured out how to mass produce it. And the method they chose was monstrous. Growing and processing cane is brutal, exhausting work. It demands enormous labor at exactly the right moment, or the crop rots. So the empires didn't hire workers, they enslaved them. Millions of Africans were shipped across the Atlantic specifically to feed this hunger for sugar. The plantation became a factory before factories existed. If this is landing for you, hit like it really moves the needle. And here's the mini payoff on that 7-year figure. The work was so lethal that owners calculated it was cheaper to work people to death and buy replacements than to keep them alive. Let that sink in. There's a twist here almost no one is talking about. Now here's the angle nobody puts on the thumbnail. We think of sugar as a food story. Singerman argues it's really a story about control. Control of nature, control of labor, and most surprisingly, control of knowledge itself. According to World History Encyclopedia, Unrefined examines how capitalism didn't just sell sugar, it reinvented what sugar even was. Think about that. The stuff had to be measured, graded, taxed, and standardized. And whoever controlled those definitions controlled the money. Here's the villain you didn't see coming. Not just the plantation owner with the whip, the chemist, the bureaucrat, the customs official. Because the moment sugar became a global commodity, empires needed to know exactly how pure it was to tax it correctly. So an entire hidden science grew up around measuring sweetness, instruments, laboratories, fraud, massive, organized fraud. Refiners learned to disguise sugar to dodge tariffs. Governments fought back with more precise machines. It became a chemical arms race worth fortunes. And ordinary people, the ones consuming the sugar and the ones dying to produce it, were the least powerful players in the whole equation. Why does this touch you personally? Because this is the birth of the modern system where invisible experts define the products in your life, and you simply trust the label. Sugar taught capitalism how to measure, standardize, and monetize almost anything. The most important part is the one I saved for last. So here's the payoff. The single most surprising insight in this whole story isn't the cruelty, as staggering as it is. It's this. Sugar was one of the first products where the fight over how to define and measure it became more valuable than the product itself. The empires realized that whoever controlled the definition of pure controlled the tax, the trade, and the profit. That's the 7-year truth colliding with the laboratory truth. Human lives were disposable. The measurement was sacred. And remember that 7-year life expectancy. That's the human price of making a definition profitable. Here's my bold prediction. As historians keep digging into books like Unrefined, you'll see sugar reframed not as a treat, but as the original blueprint for modern global capitalism. The template for oil, for data, for everything traded and taxed today. Sugar wasn't the exception. It was the prototype. And once you see it, you can't unsee it in every product around you. Before I go, here is your historical footnote of the day. This matters because it shows how deep the sugar obsession ran. In 18th century Europe, elite hostesses displayed elaborate sculptures made entirely of sugar at their banquets. Castles, gardens, mythological scenes. Some cost more than a laborer earned in a year. These subtleties were never meant to be eaten. They were pure theater. Edible proof that you could afford to waste something people were literally dying to produce an ocean away. The more useless the sculpture, the more powerful the host. Sweetness as a weapon of status. That is your footnote for today. If that 7-year figure stopped you the way it stopped me, sit with it the next time you sweeten your coffee. The history in that spoonful runs deeper than you'd ever guess. Want more like this? Subscribe to Weird History, a fresh one daily.